Tarkov's hardcore wipe is officially out, and it's brutal. Like, I didn't think it would be this challenging, and yet at the same time, it's awesome, and everyone who enjoys this game needs to try this wipe. I mentioned this in the initial video going over the fact that the wipe would be hardcore, that this is going to completely shake up the formula we've all come to know and love, or hate depending on who you are. It's such a different experience knowing how much has changed and everything else that wasn't even detailed in the 3 pictures BSG posted last week. But we're here now and it's been a couple of days, so let's go over some general thoughts and impressions on this wipe so far, what has been the most fun or exciting, what has created some problem points, and whether or not this idea was even worth it in the first place. The biggest shock to the system initially on the first boot up was simply how much was altered in the game that wasn't already touched on or hinted at. For example, we all knew scavs would get messed around with, and later Nikita said it himself, but we didn't have any specifics. Now, when you complete a scav, the cooldown is almost an hour long, which is wild. Like, I remember when I started playing, it was about half an hour, but 60 plus minutes for a scav? They are not messing around. Insurance is also something that was altered, which, again, we had a feeling would happen, but now the price is just so expensive that you would never realistically use it. And this is with day 1 gear. I can only imagine the cost with an actual good kit. I bet someone's gonna see how high they can get that number up. That'll be a fun challenge. The secure container has also been largely impacted too. You cannot store any money, ammunition, and most medical supplies in your container. The only thing that still seems to be allowed is stimulants, which, in hindsight, kind of makes sense. This way, it doesn't make the injector case completely useless, and people can still have healing, bleed protection, other sources of keeping themselves in the fight on them. On top of that, many multi-use medications have also had their uses lowered. The little CMS kit is now down to 3, and the Serve 12 kit is down to 9, but the small CMS kit can be put in the first special slot, so you can always have it. Multi-use painkillers are also down to either 5 or 9 respectively. It feels rather moot to use them, but nerfs across the board just make sense. I really do wish we could have had some money in our container solely for the purpose of offloading items when using transit points, which is something we will get into briefly here. So far, having to use transit points to get around hasn't been that bad. In fact, it's kind of a breath of fresh air. Now, I understand people have been having issues with crashes and not just being able to play the game, and I totally understand the frustrations of not being able to play other maps. I also agree that players spawning essentially on top of each other is a massive issue that needs to be addressed immediately. But other than the technical issues, it makes you entirely rethink how you would go about your raid. Are you here for just this map, or do you have somewhere else you want to go? It has you asking yourself more questions and coming up with a game plan before you've even entered a raid. And the best part is that since this is Tarkov, that plan can easily go out the window and you can find yourself doing something completely different, which is part of the charm with a game that has so many elements outside of your control. The load times in between maps haven't been that bad. So far, I haven't waited longer than, I think 4 minutes was the longest so far. What does throw me off, though, every time is the timer. It takes you 3 minutes to load into the first map, and then you play a raid for 10 minutes before using a transit. That timer is up to 13 minutes because it's considering your raid time as well. So if you think about it, that timer can be seen as how long this one character has been alive, which is kind of cool. But we'll be going into more detail about the transit points of this wipe in a more dedicated video, because it's one of the most contentious points of this whole experience so far. Another strange oddity that we weren't really informed on is that for the first day, we had no tasks to complete. For the time being, they simply were just turned off. So that means no getting your Ground Zero quest done immediately, no unlocking Jaeger early on, and such. Right now, there is a bit of an argument that there is no good reason to even play the game because the primary source of progression wasn't in the game. And to that I would simply say, again, that's kind of a good thing. We don't need people power farming the quests and getting back to where they were a couple of days into the wipe. The quests not being around is simply a moment for you to mentally prepare yourself for how much more challenging this wipe is going to be. Things are turned upside down, and pretty much everything you know about this game isn't as it once was. So many little details being changed and altered to make the hardcore experience that much more immersive. Your life now has much more value than it once did. I'm sure the quests have some changes to them, Perhaps items like the pocket watch will need a survival status to turn them in, something I have genuinely feared for years now, because any quest item like the pocket watch can be turned in even if you get a run through. It makes other quests like delivery from the past that much easier, but for some reason I have a feeling a change like that is coming. I also suspect that quest rewards like items, experience are going to be lessened somewhat. Just another way of slowing down the community as a whole. Speaking of, the community is kind of in a frenzy right now, as they normally are with any major changes, but I can't necessarily say I blame them. For years now, it was usually at most 1 or 2 major changes that would be put into a wipe, but now the entire game is different. It's not what people are used to, and while some are willing to adapt and adjust to the new demands the game is asking, others are just simply not happy, and it's only been a couple of days. Many are saying this entire experiment has been a huge L and that it's a waste of time and BSG doesn't know what they're doing, but the reality is BSG have done this for a reason. It wasn't just to be cruel or to spice things up. There is most likely an expectation being set here, a precedent that this is most likely how the game is going to function when 1.0 hits. Maybe not exactly, but it isn't just going to be choosing where you want to go, having instant access to all the dealers, and the primary focus being engaging other players not too long after a reset. The reality of what EFT is becoming is being presented to the player with this wipe, and many are just not happy, to which I would say, simply just try it. If you don't like it, don't play it. For many of us, we've been at this game for years, so a shakeup of this magnitude was necessary, but you just can't please everybody, unfortunately. Tarkov's hardcore wipe experience has been much more difficult than other previous wipe experiences, and because it's so hard, more people that have been put off by the idea of a hardcore wipe should be playing it. Right now, it's the best time. It's only going to get easier as BSG monitors feedback and adjusts the parameters of hardcore accordingly. The map restrictions will get easier, we already have our quests back, and insurance will get cheaper as time goes on. But at the core of this entire experience is being able to struggle through the early game, acquire the necessary items to survive, whether that's on your scav or PMC, and just enjoy the fact that even though it's harder, we're all doing it together. It's why the idea of opting into hardcore was always so stupid to me. What's the point if you have a choice? But there is much more to go over as we approach the weekend of the hardcore wipe, which we will be doing as the circumstances dictate. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts on the hardcore wipe, whether it has succeeded, whether it failed for you personally, and be sure to subscribe for more videos about all the changes that came with this reset that were either good or bad depending on who you ask. Hope to see you in future ones.